And away we go. Alright, let's see what's cooking up in the news this evening. State of emergency declared as New York braces for biggest snowstorm in years. On Friday, December 20th, Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency for 36 counties, including all 5 New York City boroughs, as widespread snow is expected Friday evening into Saturday morning. The National Weather Service forecasts the Mid-Hudson, New York City, and Long Island regions will get 4 to 8 inches of snow, with peak snowfall rates exceeding 2 inches per hour and gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Airports reported departing flights from LaGuardia Airport delayed an average of 60 minutes, while Suffolk police responded to more than 40 crashes countrywide. The storm forced rescheduling of Broome County events and DMV in Endicott closures on December 27th, while the New York State court system closed early Friday at 1 p.m. and local school administrators decide postponements. Forecasters say this could be the highest New York City snowfall since 2022, and state agencies began preparations earlier this week as snow moves east and ice accumulation could increase cancellations. Now, a few hours early before this story, I've actually got a report on my watch saying that a similar snowstorm is about to hit the UK. Let's see if I can find that story. Alright, I can't seem to find it on ground news. Yeah, I have gotten a notification on my Apple Watch saying a similar, like, it's not a particularly a snowstorm in the sense that New York City or the state of New York will get. Nonetheless, the forecast notification I got on my Apple Watch regarding any amount of snowfall has also said that there's going to be a lot of snowfall. Each hour, there's going to be so much snow falling onto the ground, similar to the White Christmas that everyone has ever asked for. But I digress. So yeah, so yeah, New York City and the state of New York aren't the only places that's going to get snow, and lots of it all at once. I'm getting it as well, somewhere in the UK and other parts in England. And if anyone, if anyone says anything about weather modification or people manipulating the weather to get something done and to create some kind of weather patterns that's unnatural, I'm not gonna argue with it. But once I've heard it far too many times. I don't give a damn anymore. You want to bring snow in Europe, America, do it. At least the kids will be happy. Play in the snow, build snowmen, go sledding. At least there's something for the children to enjoy until, well, school starts back up again. But yeah, if you were to ask me about manipulating the weather, I'm done with it. Like, I'm aware to some extent it does exist. It's just I don't give a damn anymore. I've grown I've grown so tirelessly of such theories about how everything's all manipulated and pre-planned years in advance. I've heard it all, and I'm just bored with it. Do what you want, don't give a damn. So long as I can continue living my life, so be it. UK launches voluntary paid military gap year scheme for under 25s. In March 2026, the Ministry of Defense will open a voluntary paid military gap year for under 25s, starting with around 150 recruits and aiming to expand to more than 1,000 per year. The government announced earlier this year the scheme to attract teenagers and rising concerns about Russia and warnings from Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton. following the Strategic Defense Review's recruitment recommendations. The Army scheme would begin with 3 months of basic training, with pay expected to match about 26,000. Will not be deployed on active operation. Officials hope the scheme will bring a broader range of people into the forces, teaching transferable skills for civilian careers with no obligation to join, while insiders claim it could ultimately pay for itself. The scheme is modelled on Australia's ADF gap year, which enlisted 664 people in 2023, with a little more than half staying on. But critics say the 150-place pilot is small and funding concerns remain. To be on a gap year towards joining the military, for them to decide, no, I don't want to join the military anymore, and just do something else. And second of all, enticing young people to join the military by paying them is, in my opinion, not a very good recruitment strategy. Because, again, like I said, you're putting money towards something only to then not to receive the outcome that you wanted. And again, the only reason people are wanting to join the military, given the story, is because they're being paid to be on a gap year and then to join the military. And then once they do join, there isn't much involvement, nor will they ever be on the front lines to then go against Russia defending Ukraine. But even if there have been British soldiers who have been fighting in the war between Ukraine and Russia, how many of those what percentage of those British soldiers across the entire arsenal have been put on the Ukrainian-Russian front lines? And more importantly, what percentage of people would come from this paid military gap year scheme? Because if the percentage of all British troops were or about to be on the front lines on behalf of Ukraine, don't expect much people, if not at all, of people joining the military through a paid military gap year scheme. If people want to join the military, it's because they stand for what is right. Actually, no, scratch that. If people want to join the military, it's because they want to defend their country. They want to put themselves on the edge of their seats or the edge of their heels. They want to risk themselves to protect their own country. Not being paid a couple £100, and then eventually you do join the military, and then you don't get much involvement as you hoped you want to get from being in the military. I understand that a lot of countries' military recruitment departments are wanting people to join the military, Navy, Air Force, or whatever of the country's arsenal, but I didn't think the UK's military recruitment would be that desperate to get people to join the military. It's embarrassing. There should be people that want to join the military without having to be paid a couple £100. Or not just because of a particular situation or event where active military involvement is necessary. People want to join the military to defend their country. But even that is debatable. Like, there will be people on the fence on, whilst I do like my country, but do I like it that much to just put my life at risk, especially if whatever I've been fighting for is something that could have just been resolved as simple as, let's make some minor compromises on this and that. I'm aware that it's not that easy to make compromises on a geopolitical level. However, if there are moments where fighting could break out and the way to resolve it was like, okay, let's agree on this, agree on that. Do we all agree? Okay, that's a deal. Alright, let's sign that treaty. If it's that simple, then what's the need to have so many people fighting on the front lines? But what I am against is violence. And it's ironic to say that, given that there are people that do care about their countries, and there are some people that want to protect their country, even means putting their lives at risk with. It's very unfortunate that people's lives are lost because of retaliation and attacks from the opposing side, and the reason for why the fighting happened in the first place is simple down to broken promises from decades ago. And I'm not defending one country or the other for having broken promises. Yeah, if there are promises that have been broken, and then that's why the war's broken out, where did that go wrong? How? How can we allow ourselves to get? How can we allow ourselves to be in that situation? It's so sad. Other than that, in regards to the war within Ukraine, I've said this many times. So I know a lot of listeners are tired of me saying it, if they have listened to a lot of my episodes. Just stop the fighting. I think we're at a point now that even both Ukrainians and Russians want the fighting to stop. And I'm not just talking about, oh, you did that and he did that. They want to take everything, and they're trying to make themselves like the good guy. Even if any of that is true, what about now? What are we doing right now to prevent people's lives being lost again? What are we doing to find solutions to where both sides can live lives peacefully? Where is all that? When will that come about? And also, back to the story about the UK paid gap year military recruitment. Again, I don't blame military recruitments finding creative ways and somewhat effective ways to get people to join the military and sign them up. However, paying them to join, in my opinion, not the best idea. Even if it does work, you're chucking money away just for people to decide not to join the military in hopes you want them to join. Like, people can change their minds at some point and decide to go on a different career path. And that's okay. Yeah, if you're paying people to be on a military gap year, and then when the time comes for them to join the military, and a handful of people saying, I changed my mind, I don't want to be in the military anymore, I want to be a decorator, I want to be on a cruise, perform on a cruise, be in theatre, and maybe start my own bakery. What happens then? What was all that paid gap year stuff for? Just for those people to decide to go do something else. So yeah, that's that. Bayeux Tapestry, priceless artifact to be insured for £800 million. Next year, the UK Treasury will insure the Bayeux Tapestry for £800 million, while it is on loan to the British Museum, with a provisional valuation approved. Because the Bayeux Museum in Normandy is closing for renovation, the 70 million Bayeux Tapestry will be loaned to the British Museum next year under the government indemnity scheme, which saves museums around £81 million annually. Comprising 58 scenes, 626 characters, and 202 horses, the nearly 1,000-year-old Bayeux Tapestry will be transported using a special crate. First-mile test run will display behind a protective screen or bespoke glass case. The loan will not be formally confirmed until the final valuation, estimated at £800 million, is completed. If confirmed, the GIS will cover transit, storage, and display, indirectly backed by the British taxpayer. George Osborne called the exhibition the blockbuster show of our generation, and the deal includes reciprocal loans such as the Sutton Hoo artifacts and the Lewis chessmen. And I thought soccer football transfer valuations aren't overinflated and overhyped. I'm sorry. The blockbuster show of our generation. What's the big deal with an £800 million tapestry being sent to the British Museum whilst the museum in a museum in Normandy is being renovated? This is just like the soccer football transfer windows all over again. What are they doing? Look, business is business. I can't argue with that. But come on, guys. Is it really slow news day if this is the biggest deal of this decade, let alone this year? But hey, I mean, if it's worth £800 million, surely security has to be tight. Like, we haven't seen any robberies that just went right under the security noses. Oh yes, that's embarrassing. Yeah, the security has to be tight, otherwise, just like with the UK military paid gap year recruitment scheme. What was all that money for? Exactly. It just went into a vacuum, never to be seen again. But jokes aside, okay. I mean, for anyone that's interested in history, I mean, sure, it's a big deal in that space, fair enough. Oh my god. I'm sorry. How the blockbuster show of our generation. Who on earth would get hyped about the transfer of a tapestry? And any tapestry. The Bayeux Tapestry, yeah, but any any other artifacts is just, well, so what? I don't know much about it, but come on, there can't be that many people that'll be that hyped for a story like that. Well, okay. It is what it is. It was what it was, and so on and so forth, and something like that. Thailand, Cambodia signed a 72-hour ceasefire agreement. On December 27th, Thailand and Cambodia signed a ceasefire in Bangkok to end weeks of armed combat along their shared border, taking effect at noon local time and barring attacks on civilians and infrastructure. Rooted in a colonial-era border dispute, the conflict involves ancient temple ruins along an 800 and escalated after July clashes and a propaganda campaign. The agreement mandates that Thailand repatriate 18 Cambodian soldiers after the ceasefire holds for 72 hours, and requires freezing troops movements, bans on military airspace violations, and allows civilians in border areas to return home soon. Exacted a heavy toll, with 20 days killing at least 101 people and displacing more than 500,000, while AP reported almost 1 million displaced since hostilities resumed. International mediators have previously brokered ceasefires with Malaysia and pressure from China and the United States, and ASEAN met on December 22nd, yet Thailand carried out airstrikes as recently as Saturday morning. Well, there isn't much I can say on Thailand and Cambodia ceasefire agreements, but of course, I remember a few months ago, July, as it seems from what the summary shows, I did hear something between Thailand and Cambodia about some kind of agreement. I'm not saying it was a ceasefire, but there was something that was agreed upon back then, and then fast forward 5, 6 months, fighting kicked back up again, and now fast forward a couple more weeks, now we get to this. A 72-hour ceasefire agreement has been put in place between Thailand and Cambodia, and I did say this once, but I will say it again. What even happened the first time round in July when something between Thailand and Cambodia broke out, and then all of a sudden it just stopped? Now, for some reason, I have a feeling that there will be some people that will argue that Trump might have something to do with the first agreement back in July. but I doubt that personally. But even that was true, well, how come Thailand and Cambodia are fighting again? Like, what? I'm not saying this is not a big deal. It is to people in Thailand and Cambodia. However, why? No, actually, no. I want to go down the route of finding mild compromise and solutions as simple as possible, but it's not that simple. Even if it is simple, some people are going to be stubborn at best regarding negotiations. They don't want to admit defeat in hopes that the other side gets an advantage or be seen as the higher up road and such. I just hope whatever agreement is put in place now, hopefully that gets extended or maybe permanent, like what happened between South Korea and North Korea during the Cold War. Not Neither of the Korean sides have actually admitted defeat yet. Yet they're not continuously fighting like other places around the world. But nonetheless, I hope permanently there is a solution that most people are satisfied with, and everyone in the people that do live in such countries involved, can continue to live their lives peacefully. KFC franchisee given £70,000 fine over slave comment. Madhesh Ravichandran from Tamil Nadu was subjected to racial discrimination and harassment while working at a KFC franchise in West Wickham in 2023. Andren's boss, Kajan Siv then Sriram, referred to him as this slave and prioritized Sri Lankan Tamil staff over him. A tribunal awarded Ravichandran £66,800 in compensation and recommended Nexus Foods Limited implement anti-discrimination training. Where do I begin? Now, surely, people should know better not to discriminate on one's identity. Honestly, I'm speechless. I thought we progressed past that. I thought we, I thought you can't just say, this man is my slave. No, people are still doing that. There's still people that's referring to people as slaves, meaning that these people are working for no pay. But these people are being paid for their work. Just saying this, I'm not just saying this is discriminatory, but this is also inaccurate as well. How can someone be a slave if they're being paid to work? Or at least being paid minimum wage? In my opinion, this is wrong on many levels. Not just in terms of discriminating on the identity of someone's ethnicity, but it's also wrong in the fact that it's just inaccurate. You can't call someone a slave if they're being paid to work, thinking that's, yeah, harassment while working at a KFC franchise. Yeah, in my opinion, this is just wrong on many levels. Not just in terms of the identity discrimination, but it's also wrong in just the fact that the comment in question is just very wrong. Like, factually wrong. He's being paid to work at KFC and make the food for the consumers of KFC customers. That's my take on it. I can't blame people with implementing anti-discrimination training, but of course, we shouldn't we should never go down this road to begin with. People should know better to make comments about just not not just on people's identity or ethnicity. But humor is subjective, and I'm certainly not saying this is a joke. But if there are people that want to make a joke, you just got to be cautious. And I'm not defending the person that made this comment, unless we know what the exact context of this comment is, all that we know as of now is that the boss of the KFC franchise just referred to someone as their slave and is being put at a lower prioritization below other staff members. At least I'm just disappointed. I'm really disappointed. Of course, such comments and discrimination is still going to exist at some point in our lives. Nonetheless, there has to be better ways of addressing such comments and assumptions. We shouldn't we shouldn't have gone down the road of providing such anti-discrimination training to begin with. Yet, if that continues in other workplaces, then and that's the thing. I was going to make the point that whilst such situations happen like that in other places, this continues in many workplaces, which it could happen actually. We just can't be too sure unless that is made public. It will get to the point that national or local governments will get involved saying all workplaces should have some kind of training against discrimination, against abuse, against assault, and against other kinds of discrimination, whatever that could be. And even if it's effective, what if it isn't? And another thought, in my opinion, is also, and this is hypothetically, if this is just a one-off, and then other workplace, and then implemented such training implemented anti-discrimination training at every other workplace, not just in the local area, but the entire country, what effect would that have? Who's not to say that even with the anti-discrimination training that employees have to do before working, yet they then go ahead and make discriminatory comments anyway? This is just a band-aid solution. You're not addressing the root cause, the reason why people make such comments in the first place. You can't just put some kind of training and hope people will just understand and know that this is not okay to do such things. There will be a small amount of people that will still go ahead and do it anyway. There's no excuses from that point on. Trump calls Nigeria strike his Christmas present to ISIS. US forces struck ISIS targets in Sokoto State on Thursday after President Donald Trump delayed the attack from Wednesday, calling it a Christmas present. After weeks of warnings from the White House, the Pentagon planned strikes last month at Nigeria's request, following intelligence sharing, with Donald Trump framing the attacks as targeting militants accused of killing primarily Christians. Launched from a US warship in the Gulf of Guinea, the strikes killed multiple ISIS terrorists, with missile remnants found in Jabo and residents reporting panic after a 10 p.m. Thursday hit. Youssef Tugar, Nigeria's foreign minister, said the government could accept US military support and disputed religious targeting claims, though some criticized learning of strikes from Trump's social media. US officials warned more action is coming. Facing a security crisis that has killed thousands in recent years, Nigeria is the sixth country the United States has attacked this year amid a complex conflict affecting 220 million people, with multiple armed groups including ISWAP, Boko Haram, and Kurwa. I have many thoughts on this. Firstly, which I would have said anyway, killing people on the grounds of religious beliefs, whether it be Christians, Muslims, the Jewish people, Buddhists, Hindus, whatever religion you may practice, no, absolutely not. You don't have to agree with their lifestyle choices or their beliefs, but killing them because of their religion? No, absolutely not. That is not okay. sadly, there will be some people that don't give a damn about that. They will continue to kill people. All we can hope for is that we ask and we pray for people's safety in such difficult times. And in regards to Donald Trump, Nigeria's foreign minister, and the deployment and just allowing the deployments of attacks on ISIS in Nigeria, whilst people think this is a win for the Nigerian government, or well, there will be people that would support the Nigerian government to allow Donald Trump to send missiles to attack ISIS terrorists. Why? Why would the Nigerian government allow attacks from foreign military forces on particular militant groups, on rebel military people, or rebels, however you like to call them? I've came across a video on TikTok talking about the strike on ISIS from Donald Trump's missiles, or whatever weapons he used. And what that woman said that, in short, a brief summary, the Nigerian government are willing to sacrifice a handful of its own people just to cook a bowl of rice, or to cook rice in some form. That's at least roughly what that woman said in that TikTok video regarding this story. I don't blame her. I could see that. Not just with Nigeria's government, but any government. You never know if particular governments are willing to put their own people's lives at risk just to keep themselves afloat, save their own skin, and stay in the power in which they have. I could see that. In summary, in my opinion, all I ask is for peace. And I know I sound naive, asking for such simple concept, knowing that the likelihood of something to be achieved, such as peace in the region, seems to be very, very unlikely. I still ask for it anyway. And I know a lot of people in Nigeria would say the same. And whether the Nigerian government actually steps in to do something, why now? Why are the Nigerian government getting involved? Why didn't they do this sooner? Why haven't they actually launched some kind of investigation, if any, into the killing of Nigerian Christians? And if this was done on Nigerian Muslims, I would say the same thing. However, what I'm hearing from Nigeria is that, in particular, Christians in Nigeria are the ones being killed. That's what I'm hearing. For the last few months, it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. China issues draft rules to regulate AI with human-like interaction. On December 27th, China's Cyberspace Administration, the national cyber regulator, issued draft rules for public comment targeting AI that simulates human traits and engages user emotionally. To address rising psychological concerns, Beijing's regulators propose rules requiring service providers to identify user emotional states and assess dependence in consumer-facing AI. Requiring technical safeguards, the draft mandates systems for algorithm review, data security, and protection of personal information by service providers, and defines national security and content red lines. The rules would apply to public-facing AI products, requiring service providers to assume safety responsibilities across the entire product lifecycle in China. To curb harm, the draft requires providers to warn users of consumer-facing AI against excessive use and intervene when users show signs of addictive behavior or extreme. Well, I will say it's a start. It's not much, nor is it enough. However, it's a good start. And this is not to say I like China because of this. There is so many reasons, and so many things within China that a lot of people would likely hate China for. And it doesn't matter where you stand politically. You could dislike China for its government structure, you can dislike China for the quality of the products they export to other countries is not as good as the products that's being made within China and being given to Chinese people. There are so many reasons that people may not like China or even despise China with a fiery passion. Nonetheless, if China, of all countries, is having to regulate AI in any capacity, then this is concerning. That is not looking good. And again, not giving China any credit for this. However, I don't blame them for putting forward some kind of regulation on AI. Whatever you may ask it to do, it's incredible. It's very impressive. It can perform task after task as efficiently, if not more efficiently, than any human could ever do. Even if it's, even there are even artificial intelligence, there's going to be particular groups of people that run a business, run a factory, that are wanting to implement AI, not just because it's the way of the future or helps with getting tasks after tasks done in a fraction of the time, but it also saves these business owners and factory owners a lot of money. Why would you pay a metallic machinery? Like, what is that piece of metal going to use that money for? Imagine what AI can use that money for, since they're the ones taking over the labor force in any industrial sector. That's the way it's going in the next decade or two. In a few years, there isn't going to be much change, no matter how advanced AI becomes. Certainly, in the next decade or two, AI or other automated entities will take over. No, not take over. That's being too generous. They will eventually make up a huge force of labor in every industrial sector, and the people that once worked in those jobs will either be will either sit on the streets asking for money or change, or they might work another job because they have skills in other stuff that would be beneficial or useful in other jobs that hasn't been replaced by AI yet. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that. And that is it for the episode.